Okay. Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome to yet another live broadcast of Tuesday morning sports. Yeah, and we are back once again to bring you the latest from the world of football on the Football Tribe UG channel. So, and on that note, therefore, I wish to say thank you to all our regulars, all our committed people that do follow us every single day, every single thing that we do put out. Thank you so much for the love and support that you have rendered to us uh, in the last couple of months. We do appreciate that really, really so much. And on that note, therefore, allow me make some honorable mentions. People like Peter Parker, people like Osim DJ, who spared the moment to be with us yesterday. People like Zero Requiem, people like mm, Zero Gamer, people like Explorer, people like February, um, Safa Ali, Maria Momoto, Amlen, and all the others that do join us every single day as we get to discuss everything sport. So, of course, the FIFA Club World Cup does continue, and that action uh, did continue throughout the course of the night. Of course, some games starting at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. That's East African time. Unfortunately, for purposes of balancing both what we do, among other things, we cannot be with you for majority of all those games that do kick off in the wee hours of the game. But we did manage to catch that game between Chelsea as they beat up against Los Angeles Football Club by 2 goals to nil. So we're going to be looking a little bit about that. Then Benfica sharing the spoils with Boca Junior in a 2-all draw, while Esperance from Tunisia were beaten by Flamengo by 2 goals to 2. So we're going to be discussing that and more in today's broadcast. So please do stay with us for this edition. Do stay with us for this edition. Then we'll also get to speak transfers and things of that nature. So once again, do stay with us. Anyways, yeah, I'm waiting for majority of you to join us, or the rest of you to join us before we get into the depth of today's conversation. Really, it's about 19 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. East African time. So it's about 11 a.m. in some parts of India, if not the whole of India. And that kind of thing, really. Yeah, so that's what we'll be looking at. And we'll try to keep it short so that we do give you time to move on to your other respective duties and give them all the attention that they deserve. But also, I do want to send a vote of thanks to all of you that have been watching our content. We did publish some videos dating far back as 8 days ago, where we did discuss Benjamin Sesko at Arsenal, why they did, and we did discuss how Liverpool's at a move for Florian Wirtz could sort of soil the market for others, given the kind of transfer fee that they've agreed to pay. I can see we have Victor. Hi, Victor. How are you, my friend? Welcome back. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. I think I'm seeing you, Victor Cremedo. Cremedo. I think I'm seeing you here for the first time, but please do let us know where you're joining us from and what club do you support in case there is any of them. But also do us the kind honor of liking the channel, but also kindly subscribe to the channel, seeing that you're new here. What team do I support? I think, okay, in all different respects, I do support Arsenal. I do support Real Madrid. I do support the Brazil national team. I do support the Uganda Cranes. And but more importantly, and above everything all, I do support football, and that's why I keep saying that. That in itself is what renders me the objectivity to come and sit here and discuss matters of football. Victor Crumedo, you come back to say, bro, you support every team. Not really, and not that I do support every team, but once in a while, my eye will be in favor of the underdog, especially when they're playing a big team. But like I said, overall, I do love football. That's for me the priority. But Ronaldo has retired years ago. Are you talking about Ronaldo Nazario Darima, arguably the best striker we've ever seen? I do not know if that's what you're saying. Victor was saying, okay, Victor was saying, I support whatever team Ronaldo plays for. And Victor was responding to him saying, but Ronaldo retired years ago. Zero. I think he meant Cristiano Ronaldo de Santos Alviro. That's I think who he meant. So that implies he supports Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League. He supports the Portuguese national team. He supports Sporting Lisbon, where he did start his career back in Portugal. That means you support Real Madrid because he did play for Real Madrid. That means you do support Manchester United as well. That means you support Juventus because he's been across all those teams, if that's what you mean, Victor. So, but anyways, it is what it is. There's no harm in supporting whatever teams you may want. I do know for a fact that there are people that do have at least a particular team they pay allegiance to, in as far as the top 5 leagues are concerned. But then again, when they have to choose one, there is always that primary team that they do align with. So Zero, you say, so Cristiano, then that is the only Ronaldo. Victor, you say, what do you think? What do you think for Alex Morgan? Alex Morgan. I'm not really familiar with Alex Morgan, if I'm being honest. I will need to make some research about him. If I'm, oh, you mean the female player? Such Alex Morgan, Sports Illustrated. Okay, I'll try to look into that. I'll try to look into it and see when I do find the term. But that will be at a later moment. For now, let me answer the most urgent, queries that I do think I may have knowledge about. Then, hey, my brother, how are you? I'm good, Cristiano Sam. Always good to have you back. How are you doing, Cristiano Sam? We've missed you for a while now. I think I last saw you, was it over a week ago on the broadcast? So, but anyways, it's always a pleasure to have you back. Then Zero, you say that one is called C Ronaldo, not Ronaldo. Yeah, I think for future submissions, Victor Cromado, you may have to clarify, because usually when you say Ronaldo, for most people, we tend to think you're speaking about R9. That's the Ronaldo Senior, Ronaldo Nazario Darima. And then Zero, you say those in Asia call him Zero. Okay, that's a new angle. That's a new angle to look at things, or a new dimension that I'm learning that they normally. But most people, you can use the credentials of CR7. They'll always get who you're talking about, or you say Cristiano. Really, that usually cuts it. For example, it's like if you went to Brazil and you decided to say to call out Santos in the streets, basically everybody will turn their heads and wonder which Santos are you calling, because it's a common name. But at least CR9 does take the brand of Ronaldo once you mention that. Did I miss a message? I don't know. I get the feeling some messages are being retracted. I don't know for what reason whatsoever. But let's start with the FIFA Club World Cup as far as today's conversation does go. I'll try to read all your messages, provided none of them is retracted. Victor, you had come back to say something. Most people in the world know Cristiano Ronaldo as Ronaldo. Football fans know Ronaldo is R9. Well, Cristiano Sam, I think that's quite debatable. If I'm being honest, yes, R9 is the short form, the same way you would use CR7 for Cristiano Ronaldo. Even if you in some cases you do not add the 7, people will be quick to imagine you're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. So that in itself is a mere abbreviation of the Ronaldo Senior. And just as much as CR7 is the abbreviation for Cristiano Ronaldo, at least from my perspective, that's how I do view it. But I also do respect your opinion that that's how you view it. Zero, you say clear up the confusion around Nico Williams. Arsenal, Bayern Munich, and Barcelona sources all claim he is close to joining their clubs. Okay, let's start the conversation with Nico Williams because Nico Williams is an interesting story because all the clubs that have wanted to sign him, dating as far back as last summer, in some form or shape, had been reluctant, being sort of off-put by his wage demands or knowing what the kinds of wages he is currently on at Athletic Bilbao. So, and that's apparently in the excess of 200,000 grand per week, which some clubs do think is slightly higher or higher than what they would want to pay. For teams like Chelsea who are trying to manage their wage bill, and for Chelsea in particularly, they are using an incentive-based wage model where they say, okay, maybe I get the feeling from what I do gather that they have sort of a wage cap above which they do not want to go. So let's say, for example, let's say their wage cap is 120,000 per week. So that is the best salary, and then whatever they pay you above that is a set in incentivized add-ons. So take the example, they will say maybe you're signing as a new player and you're Nicholas Jackson, they will say we'll give you 100 grand a week, and maybe every time you score and we win a game, then you'll earn maybe £3,000 or £5,000 in add-ons. Or every time you score, you'll get £1,000 in additional pay. And if you score and we win, then you get 5,000, in add-ons. And then if maybe we let's say we finish within the top half of the table in the first half of the season, you guys get this kind of bonus. And if we do finish in the top 4, like they did manage to do when they beat up against Nottingham Forest on the closing day of the Premier League, that goal scored by I think Levi Colwood in the 50th minute of the game, then you get maybe £500,000 each as bonuses for achieving that, for making that achievement. You're playing in the UEFA Conference League. If you make it out of the group stages, you'll get maybe 20 grand as add-ons. So that is how Chelsea, that's the kind of model that they are using. Then you look at clubs like Arsenal. When they do consider signing a player like Nico Williams, and he is on the kinds of wages that he is on, which are quite high, they also look at the loyalty of the players they already have within their squad. Because let's be honest, let's take this the example of you being part of a company where you've worked maybe for the last 3-4 years or even 10 years, busting your ass for that company, and putting in the shift every single day. And suddenly, let's say you're at the level of assistant manager, and let's say you're getting, let's say, maybe $2,000 a month. And guys, I'm using that as a mere example, not to say that it's what you deserve, but let's assume you're getting $2,000 a month. And then suddenly, the company decides to hire somebody who is a junior to you or at the same management level with you, and then they are paying him $5,000 a month. You look at that as unfair. In that respect, in any case, the company will look at it and say, how are these other employees going to feel if they, in case they do learn about this, that a new member of the team is earning that much, and yet they have been here the longest, they've been the most loyal, they've carried this business forward, and things of that nature or that regard. So really, that ought to come into consideration at some level. So basically for Arsenal, that's been the sticking point, that if they are to bring in Nico Williams and sort of heed to his wage demands, then it may cause a bit of anxiety within the dressing room among players that may be on lower wages. You get, and yet those players have been at Arsenal for the last 3-4 years, and it's not to say they've not had interest from elsewhere, but maybe they've chosen to be loyal to the club. I would know for a fact that a player like Gabriel Magalhaes, who recently renewed his contract until June 29, 27 years of age, has had a long-standing interest from the Saudi Pro League. And let's be honest, in the Saudi Pro League, those clubs are capable of paying him twice or even twice the amount of money he's currently receiving at Arsenal. And that, so you do not want to just suddenly bring in a player who is equally 22 years of age, very inexperienced as far as Premier League is concerned, but and then he's suddenly on high wages. So those have been some of the sticking points, particularly for sides like Arsenal, like Chelsea. Then when you go to Barcelona, the case is not any different, because over the years we've seen Barcelona sign players but struggle to register them because they have a wage cap. We all know about the wage regulations within the Spanish La Liga, and you ought to heed to them. There are levels of your budget within which you ought not to exceed in regards to your wages. And although Barcelona's financial difficulties go beyond their wage bill, at least even though they managed to sort of contain them, we know that they had to sell their, TV rights and things of that nature to try and raise money. We know the company has been undergoing redevelopment, so there's been a bit of financial stress on that. In some cases, they've had to let go of senior players. You do remember the period around COVID and immediately post-COVID, players like Gerard Piqué, by the time they left the club still owed them monies and things of that nature, really. So even for Barcelona, in what they are trying to assess is, one, their financial capabilities. Can we sign the player? But if we can sign the player and that's a check, can we register the player? Because player registration is factored in with that, with those regulations when it comes to wages in the Spanish La Liga. So they ought to answer those questions. And that's why the conversation around Nico Williams in Barcelona is that he has to be willing to take a wage cut in regards to what he receives. And as opposed to usually when players make transfers, when we're talking about players in their prime, usually they get an increase in wages. That's the ideal. That's the expectation. That you're moving from Atletico Bilbao, you're joining Liverpool, you're joining Chelsea, you're joining Arsenal, be it Madrid or Barcelona, that you get an improvement on your wages because you're then going to play at a bigger team. Again, similar to the work environment, that if you're leaving a startup and you're going to work for Google, then you expect that your pay is going to be sort of revamped. So that will be the expectation. And yet, in this particular case, Nico Williams has to accept to take a lesser pay if he is indeed to complete the move to Barcelona. So that's part of it. Now, the advantage for Barcelona, one, in this particular case, is that the player is open to agreeing to such terms where he takes a slight pay cut as opposed to what he is currently on, even at the time when his parent club in Atletico Bilbao are trying to give him a new contract. Now, in that new contract, they want to improve his wages, but also increase his release clause, which is believed to be around 58 million euros and maybe 60, thereabout, according to speculation. So, yes, the player is willing to take a pay cut. And like I said, all to the advantage of Barcelona is that the player's dream is to play at Barcelona. We all know that all these young players around the world, around these major leagues, many of them have long-held dreams. We just spoke about Alexander Trent-Arnold the other day. It was his long life dream to play for Real Madrid. That's why by the time he went for his unveiling, he knew a Spanish that was good enough, more than just asking for food at a restaurant. He knew good Spanish that he stood through an entire speech, introductory speech, speaking Spanish. So that's how eager he was to do that. So, okay, he's now called Prince. Thanks, Zero, for the point of correction. But I do not think it negates his other names, But thank you for that point of correction. Yes, he's chosen to go with the name Trent. Apparently, people often confuse the Alexander Trent Arnold or the Alexander Arnold and that kind of thing. So, but that notwithstanding, so that speaks to a player's dream. So you all around football, you have all these players. A player like Oli Watkins has had a very wonderful career at Aston Villa, but we all know he's an Arsenal fan. Berechi is at Crystal Palace. He's an Arsenal fan because primarily that's where he started his career as an academy player. So many players dream of playing for Barcelona, for Real Madrid. Marcus Rashford would relish a move to Barcelona and things of that nature. So that's why Nico Williams is even willing to take the pay cut if it means playing for Barcelona. Then two, it gives him an opportunity to play alongside his countrymen who he does play with at the national team, the Spanish national team. One of those being, the youngster in Lamine Yamal. As soon as that news broke that Nico Williams' agents were speaking to Barcelona, Lamine Yamal was one of the first people to rush, I think, to their Instagram and update their stories with a picture of him and Nico Williams celebrating at the Spanish national team. They were celebrating the goal. I think that picture was taken from the game in which Nico Williams scored the opener against France in that 5-4 victory against France at the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League recently. So there's that. Then you, of course, you do have players like Dani Olmo, Fermin Lopez, like Pablo, like Pedri, like Gavi, all those are a composition of the Spanish national team. So you get to play with your countrymen, Pau Kubasi, and all that kind of thing. So, and let's not forget that usually it's Real Madrid and Barcelona traditionally that have made the composition of the Spanish national team. But that in itself notwithstanding, I do think that there are a lot of other incentives. Then last summer, again, when teams like Chelsea and Arsenal, including Liverpool, were being mentioned to be in the pursuit of the 22-year-old, it was widely reported that his preference had been to rather stay in Spain. Even at the time, Barcelona still held interest in signing him. However, none of them went on to firm up their interest in signing him. So what essentially happened, he ended up staying at Athletic Bilbao. And just this summer, the Barcelona president, and that is Joan Laporta, he was speaking to the media and he said, yes, they did consider signing Nico Williams, but had sort of moved away from that interest after missing out on signing him last summer. And then subsequent to that particular interview, of course, he went on to speak about players that they wanted to retain, they wanted to give new contracts. He spoke about Ansu Fati, that they wanted to give him a new contract, spoke about Wojciech Szczesny, spoke about, Hansi Flick, whose contract had been renewed, because initial deal was ending in June 2026, so it was renewed to June 2027. Rafinha extended to June 28, and everything within that line. So subsequent to that, the sporting director in Deco also did his own interview where he got to speak about players like Luis Diaz and Marcus Rashford as players that they do appreciate, in that same strength. Now, remember, the president has said that they have since moved away from Nico Williams, and then the sporting director is coming up to say that their sights are, or their interest or lies elsewhere now in players like Luis Diaz and Marcus Rashford. Let's be honest, all those are players we could say in their prime that much advanced in their careers. Marcus Rashford 27, Luis Diaz 28, with all, I think, Luis Diaz with only 2 years left to his current contract at Liverpool. We all know the sort of issues Marcus Rashford has had at Manchester United ever since renewing his contract in the aftermath of the 2022-2023 campaign at Manchester United. So, and I remember when I was reviewing those interviews, I did say, do not take their word for it. I do not take it for gospel truth, because we know football officials, if they often lie, and also they do change their words. So fast forward, after saying Joan Laporta that they wanted to extend Ansu Fati's contract, guess what? They were already in discussions with AAC Monaco over the transfer of Ansu Fati on a season-long loan with an obligation to buy for about 12 million euros. So again, that's why I took their words with a grain of salt. And then they went on to have discussions with Marcus Rashford's representatives, who, according to reports, even Marcus Rashford himself, who is willing to take a pay cut if it means completing a move to Barcelona. Then they spoke to Liverpool. Zero, you said Barcelona demanded Liverpool sell Diaz for 50 million euros. quite hilarious. Yeah. Now, I do not know about the 50 million euros, but I do know for a fact that one, Barcelona did approach Liverpool over the signing of Luis Diaz, but those interests were rebuffed. Now, part of that, I get the sense that maybe Liverpool sort of felt disrespected at some level, because usually when clubs are interested in signing the player from another team, they do not just publicly come out to admit it, even if it is a public secret, you know. So, and I remember in the aftermath of Deco doing that interview, speaking about Marcus Rashford and Luis Diaz, when Anna Slot was asked about the same comments, he simply said, "Yeah, we also like Lamine Yamal," as if to say that they are interested in signing him just to see how it makes Barcelona feel. So those interests, anyway, for Barcelona were quickly rebuffed, even though they still interest in Luis Diaz from the Saudi Pro Leagues and Al Nassr in particular, who apparently are willing to offer up to 85 million euros to try and sign the Colombian international. Now, that offer is yet to come at Liverpool's table to test their resolve in their ambition to keep the player, whose contract has yet to be renewed. Now, they've not been contract talks that have been sort of established between Liverpool and the player, and while it was on national team duty during the 26th of FIFA World Cup qualifiers, he did just acknowledge just as much that they were in talks with other clubs, but he would respect his contract with Liverpool because he loves the city, the people love him, he's been well welcomed there, and he has no problem playing out his remainder of the contract, which is essentially 2 years. But he did acknowledge that his club had spoken to other, to other clubs. So, in conclusion, about Nico Williams is giving Barcelona the sort of the headway. So Barcelona are leading the rest to sign Nico Williams, provided everything does align for them. And Bayern Munich, who are the front runners to sign Nico Williams before Barcelona return to the conversation, have been informed that the player's priority is to join Barcelona, but Bayern Munich will wait around to see if the deal doesn't move through, then maybe they can pounce on it. Of course, some sources like Zero Deep Point Was have come out to say that Arsenal are confident of signing Nico Williams. I would say those reports are sort of wide of them, really, because apparently Arsenal are willing to offer him more in wages than any of the other clubs are willing to offer. And now, speaking of Bayern Munich, in the earlier conversations between his agent and Bayern Munich, it had been reported that they had made a demand of up to 20 million euros as gross salary per season. Now, while those discussions had yet to be concluded, as we speak, Barcelona are willing to offer only 12 million euros as gross pay. Now you can see the disparity of up to 8 million euros in terms of wage offerings. So that's there. They use their newspapers to put a pressure on the player to force moves. Yeah, again, when it comes to this period of transfers, so many reports do come out, and oftentimes you will hear either it on this channel or on any other sporting channels that you may be following, or in other conversations that you may be reading yourselves. Today you'll be hearing that talks are advancing. Tomorrow you'll hear this club has pulled out of the West. Tomorrow you'll hear something totally different and things of that nature. And then the reason for that is that there are so many factors at play. One, for example, the buying club may put out a rumor that maybe they are cooling down their interest in the player because they think the player is overvalued, or the other side is making negotiations too hard, and now they are looking at alternatives. Usually, that's again to sort of get the other side to reconsider their stance on maybe transfer fee demands. Then sometimes it's the agents leaking out the stories to say maybe Barcelona, Real Madrid are interested in signing their player, when in actual sense they are not. But essentially, they are trying to get news around them or PR around them to have those clubs that are actually interested to firm up their interest, and go ahead and make the move. So, for example, let's say you have a player like Adam Wharton at Crystal Palace, who we all know has been linked to teams like Barcelona, Manchester United, all teams that are seeking for a good central midfielder. So let's say Adam Wharton's agent will go and put out some reports that Real Madrid are really, really interested in signing Adam Wharton, when in actual sense, there's no interest from Real Madrid. But let's say the interest is between Chelsea, Manchester United, maybe Newcastle or Tottenham, So that means if Real Madrid are in the conversation of signing Adam Wharton, it may cause these domestic clubs, to move a bit faster, in firming up their interest in signing Adam Wharton. So again, that's all PR. Then the selling club can also put out a story about their own player, through different sources to try and to win some form of advantage. So please do expect all those kinds of things in the course of the transfer window. Zero says they use their newspaper to put the pressure. Yes, that's very true, like we said. Now, for example, again, still, let's speak about Real Madrid. Real Madrid use their name, the size of their club. It's the biggest club in the world. It's the most successful club in Europe. Everybody dreams of playing for Real Madrid. It uses the Galacticos era to try and win over players. That's what they do. They sort of gaslight these players into really, really wanting to force moves. At Real Madrid, we saw it with Kylian Mbappe, before he extended his contract. At Paris Saint-Germain, to say they were too furious with him. How could he do that to them? At the time when they were willing to pay 100 million euros for him, they ended up getting him for free. So again, when it came to Alexander Trent-Arnold, they used the same tactic. They are trying to use the same tactic for two players, for Miles Lewis-Kelly from Arsenal. That's according to Marca, because the 18-year-old has only 1 year left to his contract, and then they are trying to use the same tactic on Ibrahim Konate, who equally has 1 year left to his contract at Liverpool. And apparently they're all interested. They're interested in all those players, albeit Ibrahim Konate is a priority. Now, Real Madrid are, I think for the last couple of years, have used this tactic of where they are targeting players with either a year left to their contract or whose contract runs out soon. So either they want to get him as a free, and often they will say, we'll wait it out. 1 year is not too long for us to get the player. And somehow, through their different, strings of sources, network of people, they reach out to the player, they reach out to the player's agents, say, do not sign a new contract. We are definitely going to take you. Just see out your contract. And usually, remember, when players have, let's say, 1 year left to their contract, halfway into the season, and that's in the January transfer window, they are allowed to speak to any team of their choosing in a foreign league. So, for example, if you're playing in the Premier League, you're allowed to speak to all teams in the Italian Serie A, in the German Bundesliga, in the Spanish La Liga, in the French League One, and even go ahead to agree to a pre-contract, that you will join them at the end of the season. So they are allowed to do that, So Real Madrid tend to use those tactics as well. So I think I've cleared out the air in regards to the situation around Nico Williams, in regards to the situation around transfers, in regards to how teams, agents tend to play their cards. In some cases, players themselves have been the ones reported to leak out information to journalists to say, okay, there's interest in me, let's say from this kind of club, and then journalists will write about it. And then when let's say you have Chelsea, you have Liverpool, you have Arsenal, maybe Man United, and Paris Saint-Germain having Jamie Gittins as a player on their shortlist, but maybe he's not really at the top. So the player goes out to a journalist and says, PSG are interested in signing me, So that could cause all these other teams in the Premier League to change their stance or their position in terms of where that player is on their list. They could move them a bit higher on that list based on the fact that PSG are interested. Because if PSG are also interested, that means he is that good, And PSG have been known to identify good young players, at least in recent times, ever since Luis Enrique joined the club. So there's a lot of moving variables when it comes to player transfers and what agents try to do or how teams try to manipulate the market and things of that nature. But yeah, indeed, Barcelona are the ones leading the rest to sign Nico Williams from Athletic Club. In fact, as we speak, they've decided to activate the Nico Williams deal, and they are trying now to explore talks about the situation or the terms or the terms and conditions around his 58 million euro release clause. It's not really advanced. That means that they are yet to agree to personal terms and every detail of it. Although some reports do say that they had already had a verbal agreement at a certain level in the previous summer, and Barcelona are not looking to change most of the details in that verbal agreement, and that's the basis on which they are riding upon to take this move forward. So let's keep our eyes peeled to that deal. But for me, if you are to ask me on a scale of 1 to 10, who has the upper hand in signing Nico Williams, I would say Barcelona have 6.6 have 6 chances, 6 out of 10. I would say Bayern Munich have 2.5 out of 10, while Arsenal have about maybe 1% chance, and then maybe the 0.5 is now for Chelsea, depending on how I read the current situation regarding the Spanish player. Then, of course, we all know about Joan Garcia is expected to become a new Barcelona player. That deal should be completed or finalized in the next few hours or even maybe day. So that's regarding Joan Garcia from Espanyol. Then speaking of in a similar breadth with Joan Garcia joining Barcelona, we do know that Galatasaray are interested in signing Marc-André ter Stegen, although the player has turned down those offers just as much as Alson Ramsey-Becker did turn down offers from the same Turkish giants. Then David Moyes has approved Kyle Walker as an ideal target for Everton, with talks getting underway for the right back. The Manchester City right back and ex-Tottenham Hotspurs player is available for about 4 to 5 million pounds for those that may want to sign him. Remember, he spent last half of the season on loan to AC Milan. AC Milan had an option to buy him for about 4.2 million pounds, but they chose not to go ahead and make his deal permanent. So let's keep our eyes on that. Then Napoli have started negotiations or discussions over a potential deal for Darwin Núñez. He is really, really high on their shortlist, but it's Darwin Núñez, Jonathan David, who is a free agent from Lille, and then Rasmus Højlund is the other name that has been mentioned in the Napoli circles in their search for a striker. So remember, Liverpool are very, very open to selling Darwin Núñez at the right fee. So, but also Darwin Núñez is aware of strong interest for him from the Saudi Pro League. For those of you that are not aware, he's by the way only 25 years of age, so he's still well within his prime, and yet he's one of those players that does get into the right spaces, into the right positions in different phases of the game. He's just that his finishing touch has often fallen short of the requirements or of what is expected of him. A player that was signed for about 85 million pounds, and that's in guaranteed fees and expected add-ons, which was quite free coming from Benfica. I think that was it July 2021, about that time. So really, let's hope that he gets the move and that his fortunes do change. But Napoli are really, really interested. Then we do expect the deal for Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth to Liverpool to be completed either late this week or early next week, or sometime next week. Sorry, that deal we do expect it to to go through, because AFC Bournemouth have already found a replacement in Adrian Trafford from Stade Rennes. He was the captain at Stade Rennes, so that clearly tells you how valuable or valued the player is and was at his former club. He's one of those players that, according to Sky Sport, that they had considered signing. That was before they did land Milos Kerkez in July 2023. Was it July? Yes, around that time. So that's the other deal that is in the that has been completed, which has an impact on Liverpool. their movement. Speaking of Liverpool, Atletico Madrid are interested in signing Andy Robertson. There, the 31-year-old Scottish international has attracted interest from Atletico Madrid, who seem to be wanting to attack the market because they have reported interest in Darwin Núñez. They have reported interest in Victor Gyökeres. I think they are looking for another figure in the striking lines, even though they have Julian Alvarez and Alexander Sorloth. Then they also want to sign Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis. They also want to sign Alex Baena from Villarreal. They want to sign Cristiano Romero from Tottenham Hotspurs. And then should they fail in their pursuit for Andy Robertson, their second priority will be Aston Villa's Lucas Digne, equally 31 years of age. So let's wait and see how everything does develop around those players. Then, of course, Leeds did agree a 22 million euro deal to sign Jack Bijol from Udinese. The centre back is set to join Leeds there. And then Edin Dzeko is on the verge of completing a move to Fiorentina. So that deal is expected to go through with him expected to earn about 1.5 million euros per season in net pay at Fiorentina. And remember, Fiorentina are also bound to sign or to hire manager Stefano Pioli on a 3-year contract. Stefano Pioli did guide AC Milan to the triumph of the Scudetto back in 2022, for those of you that ought to remember that. Then let's quickly maybe run away to the transfer gossip or the latest in speculation and more of that. We've spoken about Kyle Walker to Everton, then Brentford and Cameroon forward Bryan Mbeumo is leaning towards a move to Manchester United over Tottenham Hotspur, despite his former manager in Thomas Frank making the switch from West London to North London. Again, this is because apparently Andre Onana has been key in persuading Bryan Mbeumo to choose Manchester United over any other club, and that's why United remain in pole position to sign the 25-year Cameroon international. Remember, they do both play for the Cameroon international team, so they are not strangers to each other. So these reports are not wide of the mark that Andre Onana could be really, really engineering the move of persuading Bryan Mbeumo to choose Ruben Amorim's side over following his manager in Thomas Frank, who has made the switch from Brentford to Tottenham Hotspur to replace Isak Ange Postecoglou. So let's wait and see, provided if either or any of them will be able to meet the valuation of the player at Brentford, that value being reported to be around 70 million pounds. The Newcastle have opened talks with Brighton over the signing of 23-year-old Brazilian forward João Pedro, who is also a target for Sporting Lisbon, but they are also interested in signing Ousmane Diomande, that's the centre back. Now, Ousmane Diomande, the Ivory Coast centre back, has also attracted interest from Crystal Palace. So let's keep our eyes out on that deal as well and see where things do lead in the end maybe by the end of the transfer window. But yeah, the strong interest in João Pedro from Newcastle. We wait to see there how things will, transpire. He's valued at about 60 to 70 million pounds, which I find a bit of it on the high end. But yeah, that's the transfer fees that are making the runs in terms of estimated value. Then Juventus have offered Sporting Lisbon striker Victor Gyökeres an 11 million pound year contract as they try to beat Arsenal and Manchester United to a deal for the 27-year-old Swedish striker. Well, I do know that Juventus are interested in signing Victor Gyökeres, but they also hold interest in signing Victor Osimhen, who apparently Galatasaray remain hopeful and confident that they can strike a deal between themselves and the 26-year-old Nigerian international, who spent last campaign out on loan with the Turkish Giants. Then Tottenham are also set to open talks with Stade Rennes over French striker Anaoud Kali Muendo. at 23 years of age. That's according to L'Equipe in France. While Manchester United have held initial talks with Eintracht Frankfurt over the signing of French striker Hugo Ekitike, but no formal bid has been made yet. Now, let's speak about Manchester United briefly here in their pursuit for Hugo Ekitike. How different is Hugo Ekitike from Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund, really? Rasmus Højlund is 22 years of age. Hugo Ekitike, 22 years of age. Of course, 20th this month, he does turn 23, but that notwithstanding. Joshua Zirkzee, 24 years of age. When you look at their goal scoring numbers, of course, Hugo Ekitike outscored all of Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee are combined because he managed a tally of 15 goals last campaign in the Bundesliga with 8 assists, giving him a 23 goal involvement, as opposed to Rasmus Højlund's only 4 goals and Joshua Zirkzee's 3, which gives them a total tally contribution of 7. But again, maybe one would argue that maybe the Bundesliga is a bit less competitive as compared to the Premier League. Excuse me. But anyway, for me, I do wonder why Manchester United are really hell-bent on signing Hugo Ekitike when they have 2 youngsters for whom it has already not worked out. I've always been of the argument that they need a more experienced striker to sort of take the weight of being the goal scorer at Manchester United goes. And my fingers did point in the direction of both Victor Gyökeres and Victor Osimhen. So, but it is what it is. But remember, Chelsea and Liverpool are equally interested in signing the 22-year-old French international. Then Napoli are aiming to sign, apparently, Manchester City's Jack Grealish or Alejandro Garnacho, and all they have is £45 million to spend on either player. Now, if I'm being honest, I do not think Jack Grealish is a £45 million player, really, not in a single bit. Notwithstanding that Man City paid £100 million to sign him, but if they do want, they may as well keep him. But any club that pays more than 25, maybe £30 million for Jack Grealish, that will be a bad deal, really. That will be a bad bit of business, if I'm being honest, in my personal view. So, but it is what it is. If you had to choose between Jack Grealish and Alejandro Garnacho, who would you choose? Personally, I would choose Jadon Sancho, only 20 years of age, still has the rest of his future ahead of him. Really, Jack Grealish, 29 years of age, in the last 2 seasons, I do not think he's done really much to convince me that he's worthy the kind of investment that Man City could command a team to pay for. But anyway, that's all one man's opinion. Do let me know what your individual thoughts are on that. Then Atletico Madrid will target Aston Villa's Lucas Digne. Again, we've spoken about that. Should they fail to sign Andre Robertson, while Chelsea have open talks with Lyon over the signing of Belgian winger Malik Fofana. The 20-year-old Belgian international is of interest to Nottingham Forest as well. Then Barcelona and German goalkeeper, we've spoken about Marc-André ter Stegen, are turning down interest from Galatasaray, while Liverpool and Manchester United, Chelsea are all in the race to sign Tyler Dibling from Southampton. That's according to Court Offside. While Real Betis want to enter Manchester United into joint ownership agreements for the Brazilian winger in Anthony. Only 25 years of age, has been linked with the potential move to Bayer Leverkusen, where his former manager Erik ten Hag is the new manager. But let's wait and see how everything does transpire in that breath. Quickly, let's rush to the FIFA Club World Cup, which some media has been giving quite the heat, especially in the UK. But Boca Juniors did share the spoils with Benfica in a 2-2 draw. Nicolas Otamendi and Angel Di Maria scored the penalty, while Nicolas Otamendi scored the header as Benfica came from 2 goals down to share the spoils with Boca Juniors. Boca Juniors had found the lead through Merentiel as well as Battaglia there. in the first half. Of course, Ander Herrera was given a straight red card, while Andrea Bellotti was equally given a red card for on the Benfica side. Now, I mean, I was a bit not surprised, but the kind of trajectory that Andrea, what's his name? The kind of trajectory that Andrea Bellotti's career did take was quite interesting. I remember in his prime at Torino, him being linked with a potential move worth 90 million pounds, the likes of Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, and all that kind of thing, and yet his career took quite the nosedive. Peter Parker, what's up, my brother? Good morning, and it's always a pleasure to have you back. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well this morning. But thank you for sparing the moment to join us. Then Flamingo did beat up against Esperance by 2-0. Jorginho did feature in that one. Remember, he was not so far back unveiled as a Flamingo player after leaving Arsenal on a free transfer, and indeed he did provide the assist for Flamingo's second goal that was scored by Araujo or Araujo, depending on how you pronounce it. Then the Aracaseta was the goal scorer for Flamingo's first goal. So that brilliant piece of action. And then, of course, Chelsea last night did manage to beat up against Los Angeles Football Club by 2-0. Those goals scored by Pedro Neto, with Nicholas Jackson providing the assist, while new signing Liam Delap made his debut and provided the assist for Enzo Fernandez's second goal on the night as Chelsea completed the 2-0 victory over Los Angeles. Then, of course, action does continue today at 10 p.m. We will have River Plate against Uwara Red Diamonds, while at 7 p.m. We will have 7 p.m. we'll have Fluminense up against Borussia Dortmund in some of the fixtures that will be coming your way today. So that's the latest from the FIFA Club World Cup. I will do our best again to keep you abreast with the latest from all fronts, both in the transfers as well as the FIFA Club World Cup that is underway in the United States of America. Otherwise, I hope I don't know if I do have any other questions in that regard, but if not, let me see if there's anything that we did miss that was on our short list of talking points. I certainly do not think so, really. But meanwhile, Manchester United have revealed that should they fail to land the services of Bryan Mbeumo, then they could turn their attention to signing Ebelechi Eze from Crystal Palace or Anton Semenyo from AFC Bournemouth. Matthias Telles has joined Tottenham. Yes, that's true. I remember he was already at Tottenham on loan, and Tottenham did agree to pay about 10 million euros in loan fees, but also have gone to pay 35 million euros for the permanent transfer of Matthias Telles. Very, very good player that they are getting. Of course, that's Thomas Frank, the 51-year-old Danish manager, is very, very good at developing youngsters. Then this is according to The Athletic, and it's just dropped from David Austin. Arsenal and Chelsea cool Nico Williams' interest as Barcelona step up a pursuit, and Bayern Munich consider move. Barcelona want to do the deal plus appeal to the 22-year-old, but complicated by financial situation, which is exactly what we've been explaining over the last course of nearly half an hour at the start of this broadcast. Then Bayern Munich made contract offer and may improve it there. So, and then of course, in the other sort of expectation, for me, I'm of a view that Arsenal do not really need to waste their time in trying to pursue a player like Nico Williams when there are so many alternatives that they can get out there. if I was speaking in Arsenal's ears, I would be recommending that they go for a player like Xavi Simons. Now, Xavi Simons is one of those players that can play across the entire front three. You know, very, very good player. Does score the goals, that youngster. And, you know, he just made his move permanent from Paris Saint-Germain to RB Leipzig, where he already had been on loan. But he's open to leaving the club. So really, so for me, I'll be really, really interested. I'll be thinking that Arsenal do make the switch and concentrate maybe on a player like Xavi Simons. Peter Parker says Matthias Cunha says he is determined to help Manchester United bounce back from their worst. I think every player that has joined Manchester United in the last 4 years has hoped to do the same, but obviously it has not gone according to plan. Anthony had hoped the same as Jordan Sancho in July 2021 when he was joining from Borussia Dortmund. He had hoped for the same, but it has not worked out. Of course, it is not the players entirely to blame for that, but at least, yeah. But let's wait and see. We do hope that he does have a successful career at Manchester United, but also it will be largely dependent on what United do overall in the transfer window, because if they equally only end up with Matthias Cunha, which I hope they do not, then it may not really change much, you know, as far as their fortunes are concerned. Yes, they may look to improve next season and seek maybe a top half table finish as opposed to finishing 15th or lower again. Then that can only be it. So let's hope otherwise. Let's really hope otherwise for both Matthias Cunha and Manchester United. Oh, then we did speak about Ilya Zabani. He did agree to personal terms with Paris Saint-Germain on a 5-year contract. PSG are yet to agree to a transfer fee with Bournemouth over the transfer of the Ukrainian defender. Yes, of course, apparently, but Bournemouth do value the player at about 59 to 16 million pounds. So let's wait and see. Then again, this is according to The Athletic, what I was practically saying about Xavi Simons. Netherlands international midfielder Xavi Simons has told RB Leipzig that he wishes to leave this summer. Simons has been at the German club since 2023, first on loan from Paris Saint-Germain before joining on permanent basis for 50 million euros in January 2025. But RB Leipzig have suffered their worst season since being promoted to the Bundesliga in 2016, finishing 7th and failing to qualify for any European competition. So Simons, by the way, is only 22 years of age. For me, that's why I do think if Arsenal can really pull out their check, go spend about 70 million euros, or even if it is 80 on Xavi Simons, I think it will be really, really worth it. He's a player that can play on the right wing, left wing, also as a centre forward, and that's why that has also been part of my arguments that if Arsenal can find that dynamic winger who can play across the entire front three, then maybe they can only sign one striker. But if that's not the case, I do think they need to sign 2 strikers. And I give my justifications in a video that we did publish yesterday. If you've not yet watched it, please do go on the channel and check it out. Or else I'll also leave a link to it down in the description. Then, of course, before I let you guys go, in case you're interested in learning digital skills like coding, cybersecurity, and web design, please do not hesitate to check out our friends at Able State. You do qualify for a 5% discount if you do enroll with them. They do offer in-person and online training sessions, as well as career guidance in the disciplines of cybersecurity, web design, and coding. They do also help their trainees find jobs in the dynamic digital world post-training. But that's some of the latest in that. Then, of course, in regards to Arsenal's pursuit for the striker, there's not been much progress there. They've been linked with multiple defenders here and there, which I do not think are all priority, but let's wait and see. They will be, of course, looking to move on likes of Rhys Nelson. Fabio Vieira was in action yesterday on behalf of FC Porto. Arsenal have sort of lessened their conditions in regards to FC Porto retaining Fabio Vieira. Arsenal were asking about £34 million from FC Porto if they want to really decide Fabio Vieira. Apparently, they cannot afford that. I do not know what that case is. I do not understand what happens with Portuguese sides. They sell players quite expensively, and yet usually when they are buying, they claim they can't afford them. But anyways, it is what it is. Guys, it's been a pleasure doing this with you once again. I wish to send my shout outs to you, Peter Parker, to you, Zero Vikram, and to Cristiano Sam. Let me see. Yes, Cristiano Sam. To Victor Crumendo, and then who else? And all the others that do manage to join us for this morning's broadcast. It's always a pleasure to have you guys join us on our Malpo at this live broadcast. Have yourselves a blessed day. Let's catch up later in the evening for another broadcast as we look to stay up to date with everything transfers as well as the FIFA Club World Cup and any other news that may be worth highlighting from the world of football. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day and bye-bye.